Welcome back for this excellent episode of the TBD Philosophy Podcast. We got Tanner Hill, our host today, who is missing his Kyla part, but he's still gripped with fear.
Yeah.
I should
And then
take off Kyla on there.
I'm Joseph. This is Nephi. We are the grippers who cause Tanner so much fear.
Oh, yeah.
They do. I tremble in my boots when I think of Joseph and Nephi.
We are super excited to hear what sort of presentation you got for us, Tanner. Get our gears and our mind churning. And hopefully all you Chileans who are, as in kids, if we have any Chileans here as well, you're more than welcome. But our future kids listening, hope you get to learn something neat as well. So with that, take it away, Tanner.
Thank you. And I don't really mean to necessarily scare us. There are a few clips that we're going to watch that might be a little bit creepy, but not necessarily scary.
I don't know. Did you hear your voice crack there? You're scared, man.
There's one that, when I think about it, it does make me a little bit freaked out. But yeah, we'll get into that. But no, we're just going to talk about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say we're going to talk about what fear is, what things are scary, where fear comes from, just some of the basics of it. And then maybe in a future podcast, we can get into some specifics.
Sounds good.
Very cool.
So then, first thing, we have our great president, FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt. And he has the famous quote. If one of you guys could read that.
As Franklin D. Roosevelt once said, the only thing we have to fear is
big scary monsters. Ah! No, just kidding. Is fear itself.
The best part of that, Tanner, is there's a slight delay. I don't think our internet is the fastest, so there's a slight delay from you. Okay. Yeah, that was great. I loved it. 10 out of 10.
Sorry.
That's good.
Thank you. Anyway, so yeah, the only thing I'd fear is fear itself. Pretty self-explanatory. It's a quote that's passed around quite a bit when it talks about fear. But how do we know what fear is if we do not define it? So that's what we're going to do. How would you define fear? What is fear to you? Ooh, choking on a snack, that is fearful.
Yeah.
Sorry, I tried muting myself.
I think I would say that fear is a lack of an expectation, where your expectation is defied in such a shocking way. So I can have fear because I don't know what the future holds, so I don't have an expectation there. Or I can have fear because I wasn't expecting that jump scare, and since it was such a shocking contra positive of what I thought, that's what caused me the fear.
I like that. The jump scare one is definitely the absence of expectation, right? But I guess the future, when you think about the future, that one might be a little more fearful of bad things that could happen, right?
Right. I guess that uncertainty that's there.
Right. Uncertainty of whether or not it's going to be good or bad. I like that. What about you, Joe?
How would I define fear? I think that fear is the anticipation of sorrow. Like you see a bear and you're scared, it's because you are anticipating losing an arm. Or you find out the stock market crashes and now you're stressing about your retirement. I think that fear is anticipated sorrow.
I like that, anticipated sorrow. Yeah, and I think that lines it pretty closely. I have the dictionary definition. I'm a strong believer in the. I forgot to write down the quote. Is the beginning of wisdom is the definition of terms. So starting to just define it, I think that you guys are right. It's the anticipation of something that is unfavorable or bad that could happen, or it's not having any expectation and then having something bad happen. The dictionary definition is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain, or is a threat. And then another one says to be afraid of someone or something is likely to be painful, dangerous, or threatening. So yeah, I think fear, just the primal sense of it, comes from being under the threat of attack or under pain. So sorrow can be part of that too, but that's emotional pain. And then here's just some fun linguistic stuff. The origin is from the Middle English word fere, F-E-R-E, from the Old English fair, F-A-E-R, which is calamity, sudden danger, peril, sudden attack. So surprising, jump scares. And it also comes from the Proto-Germanic feraz, which means danger. Yeah. This is not just a great line. So I think that's great. Yeah, we've defined fear as anticipating things or not being able to anticipate things, but then having them happen anyway. So then we'll get a little more personal. When do you feel fear? Is there like a consistent situation or time when you just feel fearful for yourself, for others? Just, yeah, expound on that.
Yeah, I definitely feel fear. Sorry, I'll still fish the can. But feel fear when it's like late at night in a city, in a dark alley, and there's some creepo that I don't know walking towards me.
Mm-hmm.
That's fearful
for
me.
And Nephi's fear is that this creepo is going to ask for his last taco, and then he won't be able to eat his last
Not
taco.
the last taco.
I need my taco.
Anything but the last taco.
I need my taco.
Is that speaking like from mission experience?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, being mugged was enough for me.
Okay. Probably any single thoughts about the future, trying to figure that out. Just in a time of life where nothing is super certain, and oftentimes everything feels up in the air, and would love to have a little more certainty there.
Yeah, I think that I'm in that same boat. Particularly when I feel fear, I tend to like have a spiral of thoughts, that go down and down and down. And it'll typically be around like finances, like, oh, what if this next paycheck doesn't come in? What if we don't have enough money to pay ourselves or to pay off the house? It's the unknown, the uncertainty of what the future could hold. So I think I'm in the same boat there. But for me, it's mostly at night when I'm like alone with my thoughts, and it's just like have nothing to do but think. But yeah, so that's what I would say is when I feel fear. And yeah, like being mugged, being robbed is definitely a fearful situation, and the future can be unsettling for sure. All right. Joseph, do you want to take that first one, and then Nephi, you want to take that second one?
Yeah. I'm going to cough up another horse real fast. 1 sec. Wow, there's a little something back there.
No big horse
out yet. It's getting there, but
yeah, I feel that, man. Okay. That's the worst.
All right. Fear is a natural emotion that serves as a survival mechanism, preparing us to respond to potential danger. It's an essential part of our evolutionary history.
Common fears include spiders, heights, and darkness. These fears are often linked to our survival instincts. For instance, fear of heights protects us from falling, and fear of spiders can protect us from potentially venomous bites.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get at here is that much of our fears stem from our, Neolithic ancestors, where they needed to be watchful and careful of like venomous animals, snakes, lions, tigers, whatever it is. But I wanted to get your thoughts on what you think that where do you think fear comes from? is it learned, or is it a natural instinct that we have?
I think both, but mostly learned is what I would say. I think that instinctively we do have jump scares. Just something sudden and unexpected can just make us go like, but I think that probably the majority of our fears are learned. I don't know, it was like, last week I watched a video of some dude wanting to prove. So I remember, I don't think it was Forbes. I'm sorry, you don't know the video. I'm just turning to you for validation, I guess.
But I validate you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was they just like put a bunch of like 1 and 2 year old little babies in a pen and then put in a bunch of snakes with them, and like all the parents like were just watching from cameras and they were all like, oh, but all the kids just didn't care and were just playing with the snakes. And they were talking about how for the kids at least, they almost 100% react to what their parents' reaction is and will like look to try and perceive how they should feel.
I've got one thing on that. So Ari is, learning. She's almost 3, and we went outside one day. Well, we go outside all the time, but we went outside and Kyla got super scared of a bug that was on the ground. She's like, eh. And then from then on, every time we see a bug, Ari has gone, and she like shies away from it. So I think that is 100% correct. I think that a lot of fears are totally learned because of our, due to our parents.
Is that how she got scared of flies?
Yep. So we're trying to unlearn that fear, but no idea if we're going to be able to do that.
Is that something you just rub in Kyla's face every now and then? Be like, you did this to her.
I want to say that I'm a good person and don't do that, but I do sometimes.
Oh, I love it.
Well, so what do you think, Nephi? Do you think that fear is learned?
Yeah, I agree with what you guys have said. I think there's some that's just inherent because of the reactions of like the jump scares, right? But I would definitely say that the far, far majority is learned.
I agree. And just some psychological stuff. Babies are only born with 2 fears that we think that they're like definitive fears. One is loud noises, and then falling. So those are like the 2 fears.
That's interesting because as I was thinking about it, I even thought about Aslan because I was like, oh, like
that's my baby.
Oh yeah.
All the audience. You gave out my baby's name to the world. Don't stalk her, please.
You're the one that identified her. So, plus she's a minor, so we can do it, I suppose, right? With your permission. But, anyways, yeah, I was like, wow, because it's like you make like silly faces to babies and they smile. If there's like a shocking thing or a bug or the snakes, then yeah, it's just like, oh, just processing what's happening. But yeah, when you do like big loud noises, that's when they have like an instant, whoa, surprising thing. So totally makes sense.
I'm not saying you should drop your baby, but I feel like, once you like lose control, well, not lose control, but when the baby feels that downward momentum, their like arms and legs immediately just go out to grab something,
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, just some cool stuff there. So in the next part, when we're faced with danger, our body triggers the fight or flight response. This is a psychological reaction to prepare us for either confront threat or to flee to safety. And then physically, your heart rate increases, a surge of adrenaline rushes through your head, and your senses become hyper alert. Have you guys ever experienced fight or flight? When was that? Give us a rundown on the situation.
When I had to wake up this morning.
Yeah, that's fair.
I did last week. Holy cow! So I'm working at the airport in Idaho Falls, and you have a certain number of points that you can accrue for doing things wrong. If you get too many points, you get fired. And when you're brand new, you have very little points. This is either last week or 2 weeks ago. It might have been, I don't remember, but I picked up a shift for a friend and had gotten, I picked up a shift for a friend super late the night before, so I didn't fully think it through, I guess is my defense. Woke up the next morning, got ready to go out to my car, realized that my security badge was in a different car that was in Pocatello at the time, and I missed my shift, so I was absolutely horrified and my heart was pumping, and I accrued points, and I was like, okay, I can take one more hit though. I'm okay. Literally the next shift, I just gotten like 0 sleep that week. I completely slept through my alarm. I woke up and whoa, when I read the time, I felt it. Like my heart instantly was like pumping so fast, and I sprinted like easier than I ever sprinted before. Like I was terrified because I was trying so fast to not lose my job, but holy cow, I felt like a boss. I was like, I am so fast. I'm not even like tired. I was like, why can't I do this all this time?
Yeah, that would be nice, but yeah, that's the adrenaline going through your head.
Yeah, so gratefully so I did actually accrue those points, and so then if I got any more like penalties, I would have been fired, but I lasted long enough to where now I have more wiggle room. So
Ooh,
I can now slack off more and keep my job.
Way to go, Joe.
He's not a slacker. It was the first time he made a mistake.
Yeah, Joe's a wonderful guy. We've got no doubts about that. I think for me, the last time I felt that was I just finished putting together this IKEA thing as like a storage bin for Ari's toys. And then I just hear this like scream from the bathroom with where Kyla's at. And like I'm like, oh boy, what is it? Is it a spider or something? And she's like, there's blood everywhere. And I'm like, oh crap. And so like I dart up and I run over there, and she was pregnant, 41 weeks at the time, and so we were warned that bright red blood was like a bad, super bad thing, and it was bright red blood, and so we're like, oh crap, we gotta get to the hospital now. And so I was like yelling at my mom to come down, and then we ran to the car, and then we made it to the hospital. And turns out it was just a sign of labor, which is a good thing because we wanted labor. But yeah, that was terrifying for me too. I feel that.
Now Tommy's gonna be able to. Oh shoot, we're giving away all the baby names today. Darn it, we might need to add some bleeps into here. But now your baby's gonna.
In that case, blippity blip blip.
Your kid's gonna listen to this in the future, Tanner, and be like, "Wow, I did that."
Oh yeah, I
made it into the podcast.
Sorry, what were you gonna say though?
I said he's gonna feel accomplished. He made it into the podcast.
Yeah, there you go. So, do you think the fight or flight response, is it helpful, or do you think it can be a hindrance sometimes?
I'm gonna take. Okay.
Oh wait, do you guys hear that? Oh, it's a spider! Ah! Anyway, sorry. I'm scared. Go ahead, Joe.
I mean, I still love them. I think the fact that they're delayed honestly makes them better.
I know, right?
I thought it was a crab. That is nasty.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Look at that thing.
It's funny.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead about the
fear.
Fight or flight. If it's good or not.
Flight. Yeah, if it's good or not.
I think that the more civilized of a community you live in, the worse it is. I think that the less civilized of a community you live in, the better it is. I think the more civilized, the more it's probably being triggered on menial things that is just increasing your stress when it doesn't need to. Like
did I do the dishes? Did I leave the oven on? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Things that could burn your house.
I have to, like a homework assignment or some project at work. It's like
not life-threatening.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
But I still think that's interesting though, because even in a more civilized society, while it's not as life-threatening, you could say, as like being mauled by a bear, if you don't turn your work in on time and you get fired because of that, it still turns your life upside down. So I feel like while the bar of living your life, I suppose, is shifted. It's not like a physical life or death situation, but I think it is definitely a lifestyle risk. So essentially, I feel like, yeah, I agree with Joseph, but with the qualifier that I still think that there's good reason why you would want the fight or flight, even in a civilized society, because the, I guess, standards of what would cause genuine fear is still valid, even though it has shifted.
Interesting. So you're saying that, like, even though, like, the getting mauled by a bear and then getting fired from your job would have the same, like, so one is a physical effect that would, hurt you for life. The other is more of a psychological effect that could hurt you for a long time too.
Yeah, and I guess I'm seeing it in context of the societies that it's in, right? Because like if we're living in a not civilized society, being mauled by a bear makes it so that, okay, now I can't go get food, now I can't fight any other enemies, I'm dead, or
I can't provide
in some way, right? But I feel like that idea of I can't provide is just the same effect, just translated in the civilized realm, where, oh, now I'm not providing for my family. I don't have food. I can't do this. I look bad. People are saying, oh, he's fired from his last job. He's a poor worker or something like that, right? It follows you around for life, even if it's not a physical following. So I feel like it's definitely different. Like, not to say at all that people who get mauled by bears are facing the same thing as someone who might have lost their job at McDonald's, right? But I think in the context of its cultures, I think there's a reason why the fight or flight is still very useful.
Okay. So do you think that fight or flight helps you make better decisions?
I think it can. Yeah.
It can?
For instance, with like late assignments for work or something, or like really having to get to work on time, I think it's nice having that kick in gear to help you like deprioritize everything else that really doesn't reach that goal and prioritize and have the extra adrenaline rush to get the main goal necessary done. Granted, I will say it could be hard though, because if what you're having that fight or flight response to really isn't what you should prioritize, then it is inhibitory for sure.
I like that. That's a good way to put it. What about you, Joe? Any response to that?
I think it makes sense. I mean, just because we're in a more civilized place doesn't mean it doesn't have its place still. But man, it sure would be nice to just be carefree all the time, right?
It would be. Well, sweet. So then, what did early man fear? We've kind of already discussed this with like snakes and bears and things like that, and that makes sense. So like we're trained to recognize those types of dangerous things. So then this is going into the next segment of fear, which is a little bit of the creepier part. Why are our brains trained to see something that looks almost human, but not quite, and be afraid of it? So let me jump into that.
Fun question.
So like this, like imagine this in a dark room. Like you might look at that and be like, "Oh, that's kind of creepy. I'm going to stay away from that," you know?
Totally.
And then there is this clip from this thriller movie called I Am Legend. Have you guys seen that one before?
I feel like I'm a theatrical or a cinematic heathen for not seeing it.
I know, it's like so famous, but I never have. Please do show it. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, so we'll just watch this short clip. I don't know if it's going to record the audio. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear it either.
All right, here we go. We'll see.
I don't like surprises, and I swear I'll act surprised.
Okay? Can you guys hear that?
Yeah.
You can hear it?
Yeah.
I heard it when the volume was up. I can't really hear it now that it's down.
Oh, it was all the way up? Okay. Let me turn it all the way up. It's just really loud in my ears, so I'll turn my volume down.
Sorry.
Anyway, to give you some context, so this is post-vampire zombie apocalypse. So, like, there's this virus that turns people into, like, zombie things, but they can think, and they can, like, plan and do things, right? And so Will Smith is in New York City all by himself with these things, and these zombies can't go out in the light, which is why he's driving around and everything. But he's trying to find a cure for this whole thing, right? And every morning he gets up and he gives a little like handshake or high five to a mannequin that's at a certain shop that's close to his house. Okay. And then let me full screen that. And yeah, that's the context for this, is he's just driving down at the end of the day. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Did it move? It's a little fuzzy. Did the head move?
Why is this not working? Okay.
No, I don't like surprises.
Yeah, so look closely at this, okay?
Oh, it totally moved.
The head moves. The head moves.
I feel it.
Hey! Hey! What the hell are you doing out here, Fred? What the hell are you? No! 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 What the hell are you doing out here, Fred? How did you get out here? Fred, if you're real, you better tell me right now. If you're real, you better tell me right now.
There you go. Creepy.
This is just a psychotic breakdown, is what we're seeing.
No, I don't like
Yeah, it's just a psychotic breakdown, and yeah. So, but it's just to illustrate the point that why are we so trained to, like, when we see those things move, like we just see something wrong and that we need to attack it. Why do you guys think that is? Like we have, sorry, let me preface this. We have this historical precedent of like lions, snakes, bears that we need to be afraid of and that we need to have this fight or flight. But for me, when I see something like that, something that's not quite human, and then all of a sudden it like starts moving or doing something, I get like pretty freaked out, you know? It triggers that fight or flight in me. What do you think?
This is not a question I thought you were going to ask, and I like it. I've not thought about it. Why it like feels different when it's humanoid. Yeah? Is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah. Because it triggers like a certain response that's like different than the others.
I think part of it is because I feel like we just see humans as different. Like, in general, people think that humans have more human rights compared to other animal species, right? And so, because I feel like there's just more like expectation behind what makes human human. And so when like a mannequin moves its head, that seems like, okay, we know it's fake, it's not actually human, but because it is humanoid and is personified a little bit like by the slight move of the head or something, I think it's just like, because it's so out of the ordinary for something that we have already like put within such strict bounds, I think that just makes the fear so much more intense. Versus like, oh, even if it's like a fake snake and then you see the snake move, it's like still scary, but at least you already knew that, oh, snakes are scary anyways, right? Whereas that person, I think there's not as much of that inherent fear with it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Joe, what do you think?
Is humanoid scarier than human? I'm leaning towards yes.
I think so. Like Chucky freaks me out more than like a mass murderer.
Yeah.
I think it's probably because mass murder, I feel like, has some sense of humanity behind it, whereas humanoid lacks that humanity.
So you're like, no strings attached. Huh?
Yeah, no conscience. no eventual remorse. I don't know. No story behind it, I guess.
I think that phrase, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, definitely plays a role in that. Where I guess,
so there's just some unknown factor there.
Yeah, it's just like
totally. Because what we should know.
I like it, Tanner. I did not see this going this way. I like this.
Yeah, this is something that I've been thinking about for a while. Like, it does freak me out, and I just wonder why. And I'll put a crazy conspiracy theory out here.
Ooh.
I think it's because there was something back in our people's history that looked human and hunted humans and was dangerous. Like, think skinwalkers or like other things like that.
Oh. Oh man. I unplugged something.
Oh, doesn't it?
That...
I mean, it makes sense. Like, if we're scared of this historically because they are scary and they could hurt us, why wouldn't humanoids, you know?
Some freaky stuff, man. That is interesting.
So we're going to keep going on this for just a minute. And have you guys heard of analog horror before?
No.
So it's a very recent trendy horror genre where it's like horror if it took place in like the 70s or 80s with really grainy video footage and like old school type animation and that kind of stuff. And like people are turning that into a medium to create horror. And then let me how do I open this? Uno momento. I want to show you one of the most recent ones that came out, or a clip of one of the most recent ones that came out. Oh my gosh, that's loud. Okay. I'm going to turn that one down.
We don't actually see anything yet.
Okay. Did you guys hear that though? Or no?
No.
Jeez, I might need to turn on a light in here, guys. I'm getting a little spooked. Okay. All right, can you see this one now?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So this is something called The Oldest View. I'd highly recommend watching it. There's a Wendigoon video on it. That's the one I watched, and he breaks things down without it being super scary. And so, yeah, let me just turn this down a bit because you don't really need the sound for this one. So, yeah, so to give you context, this guy finds an abandoned mall, and he is exploring it. Can you guys see that okay?
Yeah.
And then, boom.
That spooked me.
Yeah. I felt
this creepy thing just pops up behind him. But, like, it kind of looks human. You can see where the eyes and the mouth would be, but, like...
And the hand. Yeah.
Like, it's just kind of creepy, you know?
Yeah. So this is a scene from a movie?
It's from an analog horror thing.
Fun.
So, like...
Wow, yeah, that made my heart pump. I was like...
Yeah, I'm not expecting that.
But see, that's what I'm saying. Like, things like that, they trigger your fight or flight response. But why?
Really hard.
Why would they do that? It's just something that's like... It's just there, an inanimate object. Why would it scare us, you know?
Wow,
and anyway,
weird.
In the rest of that one, the dude gets trapped in the mall, and then the giant tries to hunt him down, which is really creepy. All right, so part of the reason why I think that we get scared of this kind of stuff is because of what is it? Pareidolia, which is the tendency to see meaningful images in a random or ambiguous visual pattern. So, for example, in the picture above, I didn't really place that well enough.
Oh, it's okay. We both see it.
Yeah, you see the face right there, right? That's the famous face on Mars. And let me pull up another picture of it. I can add to it. Oh, whoops. Sorry, I'm working on two different computers, so I have my notes on one side and this one on the other.
You're good.
Okay, and then they took more recent pictures of this. This is a way better example. I'll just open this up real quick. We'll just share this tab. Anyway, so here's a better example of this, where it's just, the face is on the left, and this is another picture with better lighting, and it's just a mountain. But we tend to see what we want to see. We see the face instead of anything else.
I think they covered it up.
Yeah, it's all covered up.
Yeah.
And then
Marvel had it right. There's beings living inside planets.
So this other one, automatonophobia, is the irrational fear of human-like figures such as mannequins, statues, wax figures, animatronics, or robots. So I just wonder why. Why are we scared of these things? Why are we scared of things that look human but aren't? Like, you ever had that experience where you look at a pile of clothes, next to your bed, and then you see an outline of a person there, or you see a coat hanger, and then you see someone standing there, but then when you turn on the light, it's just a coat hanger, right? Like, why are we trained to look at that? Why are we trained to find that? What do you guys think? I mean, we've talked about this a little bit already, but maybe with a newer perspective, what do you think?
I feel like
if there's no new thoughts, that's okay.
Yeah, I guess I just feel like part of it is that learning experience that we grow up identifying people. Like, as a little baby kid, we can't take care of ourselves at all. We have to have somebody, and if we can identify someone and then have them actually respond to us, then I think that makes more sense. I mean, I feel like when babies are just born, they can cry and cry and cry, right? But then once they're old enough to recognize whether someone is there or not, even when you stick them in a room, they'll cry for a little bit, but then they're done.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you walk in and they don't see you or hear you, then you're fine. But then if they see you, then their face goes from to ah.
Right,
so I think it's that idea that it's trying to identify people, whether it's for needed support or trying to protect yourself even. Because maybe, like you said, from way back when, we just developed that idea that, maybe they're an enemy, So I think especially with a person, that kind of goes back to that idea of we know what a person is. And so if we can identify the person, then we know what we're dealing with. But if it is just rumpled clothes or something, then we're oh, whatever.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying we're trained as babies to find people or faces because it's comforting. So either originally this instinct is to be a comfort.
I would think so. Yeah, some source of that comfort, support.
I like that. I don't think I thought about it as a positive thing, but yeah, that would make sense. That's cool.
Which I guess that's part of why I would say fear too, because if fear is that sense that you'll get that sorrow or a negative feeling out of it or danger, because then if you recognize a face and you don't know it, it's at a place where it shouldn't be, then I think that makes sense why you're is it going to attack me? Is there some bad thing that's going to come of it? So I think that makes sense why we're fearful of it rather than facing comfort.
So when something looks off and it doesn't look like what we're used to, instead of feeling the comfort, it just does a 180. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I like that. That was well put. Anything to add, Joe, or?
I don't know. I am still just kind of baffled at why I think humanoid is scarier than human. Why? Maybe is that conditioning? It could be because horror movies have taught me that, right? That's always the case. Yeah. Horror movies are humanoid things. Yeah. Man.
I don't know. Deep thoughts.
I know, you're doing really good emphasizing the TBD with this.
I do agree with you that I think it is the mystery behind it, the not knowing what it could be or what it may not be.
Oh, we lost you, Tanner. I think your audio went to a new place.
Yeah, we can't hear you. All right, our wonderful listeners. In the meantime, we will start with some trivia. Starting off, Nephi. What was... I can't think of any.
What was the 47th president of the United States?
There is no 47th.
There is none.
Oh, Nephi, I stayed up way too late last night. Oh my gosh. My eyes are dying trying to stay open right now. But it's okay because it's also a really fun, interesting topic. And
True. Tanner did just drop from the podcast, FYI. So that's why we can talk about how tired we are right now.
yeah, exactly. Oh, and he's back. Tanner, hello.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yeah, we can.
Okay, sweet. I hope I didn't mess up the recording.
No,
It said that it's just going to record you on a different track, so I think we're good.
Okay, sweet. All right.
Onward.
We'll jump back into it then. So then the last definition I want to give is something called the uncanny valley. This term originated in Japan when talking about this sort of thing, that it describes humans that or humanoid things that look slightly off. And it says the uncanny valley may be a biological response to things that look human but are off in some way, which could have historically been a sign of danger or disease. So, could have just been, he's got the smallpox, looks wrong, and so you got to stay away from him. So that's how it could have, evolutionarily done that. But there's definitely more ways than one way you could spin that. All right, so now we're going to do a little bit of a role play. You guys ready for this?
Oh, here we go.
Okay, you wake up in a dark room filled with mannequins. And you don't see any doors around you. Everything is just dark. There's some lights that are shining over the mannequins. What do? You've got nothing but your clothes on.
They're totally alive. I'm going to start ripping off heads before they do their big reveal and start moving.
Immediately goes for the heads.
That's smart. Yeah.
Like, what the heck, man? Freaky.
Yeah, I think I would be so scared. I just wouldn't even know what to do. I'm glad. I don't know. I'd look around and probably find a corner.
Find a corner and hide.
Corner.
Well, there's your fight or flight there.
Yeah.
No, I would put all the mannequins in timeout. I would put them all in the corner, facing the corner, and put their heads down.
Mm.
And
then what if you turn away and then all of a sudden they're looking back at you?
Yeah.
Then I would definitely start going for heads. I'd be like, big reveals coming sooner or later, and I'm at least taking out a couple of you before you get me.
Yeah, totally.
Love it. Yeah, we don't have to spend too much time on this one, but just wanted to see what your guys' reactions would be, and I'd say that's pretty fair.
No, it was fun.
All right. I didn't put this on here, but I'll go ahead and put it in the chat real quick, and then you guys can read it. If that's cool with you.
Have some chat.
Please, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, I just gotta figure out how to copy and paste it. So we've talked. I'll read this one because we've already talked about it. Behavioral theory suggests that fear is learned through experiences, while cognitive theories focus on how our thoughts and perceptions create fear. Everyone is born with the two innate fears of falling and loud sounds. The rest are learned. Our surroundings, parents, siblings, friends, TV, teach us at a young age to be scared of things like the dark or of monsters. Experience shapes our fear as we get older. And so we did already talk about we can learn fear. So then, naturally, can you unlearn fear? And how do you unlearn fear?
I think there's like exposure therapy.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, that's the most common one, is to expose yourself to the thing until you realize that eventually it's not as scary as you once thought.
I am terrified of wealth.
Yeah, give it to me.
Yeah, let me try it, man.
and abs. I'm also terrified of abs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, and like way too much success in a loving family. I am terrified of that.
Right. Oh, no accidents. Everything going right.
Oh yeah. Glad we're on the same page.
All right, could one of you guys read this next one in the chat?
Yes.
That's right there.
Thank you. I messed it up.
Oh. No, that's right.
Oh, right here it is. Okay. Fear conditioning. Oh, you go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I've got a second one. So.
Oh, sorry.
Fear conditioning is a process where we learn to associate I know this word. My brain's turned off. Neutral.
It's neutral.
Neutral. Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm so tired, y'all. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Stimulus with a frightening event. A classic example is Pavlov's dogs, where the dogs were conditioned to associate a bell with food. Similarly, a person might develop a fear of dogs after being bitten by one.
Then Nephi, if you want to take that next one.
Phobias are intense, irrational fears of specific objects or situations, so they can significantly impact a person's life. Common phobias include arachnophobia, fear of spiders, acrophobia, fear of heights, and claustrophobia, fear of confined spaces. Quote, as psychologist Carl Jung said, the fear of death is the most irrational of all fears.
So, just a lot of people agree that a lot of fears are learned, and phobias can also be learned. But I thought this quote was interesting. The fear of death is the most irrational of all fears. And why do you guys think he said that?
I think it's because it's the most expected thing that humans can plan on. You can't plan on whether or not you're going to have a sickness, can't plan on whether or not someone's going to come and creep in your house at night. You can't have that perceived sense of something bad going to happen. Save with, like, in anything, it's always a possibility, but death is guaranteed. And so it's like, why do you fear it if it's inevitable? Why do you have a sense that something bad could happen if it's guaranteed that?
Well, I think from my perspective, I think it would still be scary of how you would die. I guess not being dead is the scary part, but how you die could be the scary part. You know, you could have like a year-long fight with cancer, being painful and like just being in pain and despair the entire time, and then still die. And like, I feel like I would be more scared of the year leading up to that, you know?
That's a good point. A lot of people are scared of the pain versus, you think of like a slow death by cancer versus someone who dies in bed. Like, well, lucky for them.
Yeah,
I mean, not lucky, but like,
would much rather die in your sleep, right?
Yeah. I also feel like it could also be one of the most rational fears, though, because I feel like from that side that you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I understand that like how you die has so much behind it, but I also just think that death, because it is guaranteed to everybody, it's like, and no one has been like, oh yeah, this is what death is, guys. It's like, oh, it's a guaranteed, nobody knows, so there's no like expectation. Like even with cancer, there's some sort of, okay, we know it's going to be painful. That's true. And yeah, I'm fearful of that. Or with whatever other outcome, I guess you could say, of how you could die, there's some sense of understanding the depth of sorrow, but there's no depth that we have experienced of with death, I would say, in a generally accepted sense.
Yeah, so I think we agree that the how of dying is much worse than the just being dead part. That makes sense. Okay. I think we'll run through these last couple slides pretty quick. Just wanted to touch on the different types of fear, how there's like a physical fear of like worried that you're going to get hurt in some way, break an arm, get mauled by a bear, versus the emotional fear, which is like the fear of the future, of financial ruin, you know, all that fun stuff. And the media, they often do things to explore our fears, like the horror films, play on our fear of the unknown, the supernatural, and vulnerability. Whereas news might, you know, make us fearful of the politics or or other fears and influence our perceptions and behaviors. And we've kind of already talked about this. We can discuss the quote, though. The fear is the shadow of intelligence. What do you think that means?
I guess it takes intelligence to identify potential harm. So,
whereas like ignorance is bliss, intelligence is not, right?
Yeah. Those children I was talking about earlier playing with snakes. I mean, they obviously they said they got snakes that were like trained to be played with, but most of the time, if you find a snake out in the wild, I would not pick it up and would be extra scared if my child picked it up. So I can see how fear is a burden of intelligence. I never connected those dots together before, though. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I concur.
Well, sweet. Then, last slide. How do you cope with fear?
I don't.
I live with the fear.
I live with the fear.
Oh,
fear's my middle name.
I guess then, what advice would you give to your kids on how to cope with fear? How can you help them cope with it?
Get over it.
Let me see.
No, seriously, it's just like I feel like there's so many different ways that you could cope with fear, depending on how you approach it. Because I feel like for someone who has like a fight response, would have a totally different way of coping with fear than someone who has a flight response.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they're both fear, right? Or the freeze response. I don't know that they've been including too, but ooh. Joseph's pulling up a super good quote right now. I'm excited to
look in.
It doesn't happen to be by Mark Twain, does it?
No. I am sure you got a good one there. I'm looking for a quote. I'm pretty sure. No. Well, maybe I did not read this right. Well, if I find the quote, we can put it in our show notes. If not, it's a good thing we fact check things. But I thought that I heard that I think it was President Hinckley's kids said that he didn't live with fear. With stress. Or it was him who said, I just don't live with stress anymore. And President Gordon B. Hinckley was the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I have been thinking, with you giving this presentation, a lot of how we've been taught that like you can't have faith and fear at the same time, And so I really liked how you brought up the discussion of defining fear in the beginning, how fear is the anticipation of pain. And I guess having faith is, I guess, part of having hope is believing that you'll be okay, right? That even if XYZ hard things happen, you still can be happy through God. So,
I'm getting rings of stoicism in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. That like you can't be affected by the outside world, and that you are kind of the one calling the shots for your soul and your life. And yeah, you're right. That's totally stoicism. So I know for this time of trying to figure things out, having moments of just feeling like it'll be okay by turning to God really does just help so much, because most of the time I think I do feel the pressure, but remembering those moments when I felt relief helped me just feel like it'd be okay, So it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, it's probably part of becoming a better person, right? Is we are in the refiner's fire for more time than not. But those minutes of bliss help get us through. It's how you get through a job. You know, you're at your job and most of the time it's hard, but you're like, 3 more weeks and then I get my 2-day vacation. It's almost there. And the memory of that carries you over until you get the next one. The weekend, right? Every 5 days, the weekend's almost here. Yeah.
So true, though.
Nothing super crazy, but
amen. I second that.
Hashtag Jesus.
I second that too. I'm trying to find the quote. It's also from apostle or from I'm trying to find it, but something, it goes along the line of, for me, the way that I get rid of fear is just through action. The quote goes something along the line of, the antidote to fear is action. And so, like, just doing as much as you can and then not worrying about the rest of it, which, you know, also I want to bring this up on another podcast because I really love the idea of stoicism, but I think a lot of stoicism is in line with what the church teaches.
That's faith, huh?
Yeah.
Faith
because
just doing
you just do what you can.
Acting. Yeah, you act and then believe that it'll be okay.
Yeah. And then I'll leave us with this quote by Mark Twain, who said, "Courage is resistance to fear, the mastery of fear, not the absence of fear." And so it is okay to feel fear. I think it's okay, but it's what you do about it is what matters. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. That's it.
Wow, that was instinctive. Look at us. That last one was for us. Congrats, bravo. Whoa, that was awesome, Tanner. Thank you so much for taking us through some new insights and questions I've never pondered about with fear before. I now know that the best Halloween costumes are the humanoid ones. So I will be dressing up my daughter in a humanoid Disney princess outfit, I think this year. Will be a pretty good news headline setter.
Please do.
Yeah. And with that, if anyone else has got any last words, we'll stop the recording and look forward to seeing everybody next week.
Thanks, Tanner.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joseph.
Thank you, guys.